Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. The conversation with Pops was a crossroads for Elias. He could continue down the path of self-destruction, a ghost haunted by a ghost, or he could choose a different way. He chose to live. He went back to his mother's house. He sat down with her at the kitchen table, and for the first time, he told her everything. About his investigation, about Simon, about the revenge, and about the emptiness that had followed. She listened, her face a mix of fear and a fierce maternal pride. And when he was done, she just held him. "Your father will be so proud of you, Elias," she whispered. "Not for the revenge, but for the man you are trying to be." That was the beginning of his healing. He started going to therapy, working through the years of trauma, of grief, of a rage that he had never known how to name. He started to rebuild his life, not on a foundation of his father's legacy, but on a foundation of his own. He enrolled in community college, got a degree in criminal justice. He wanted to understand the system that had, in its own way, created both his father and the men who had killed him. He wasn't interested in being a cop. He wanted to be a different kind of soldier. A soldier for the lost boys, the ones who were walking the same path he had almost gone down. He became a youth counselor working at a community center in his old neighborhood. He had a credibility with the kids that no one else had. He had been one of them. He spoke their language. He understood their anger, their hunger, their desperation. He didn't preach to them. He just told them his story. The story of the disappearing dad. He told them about the allure of the streets, the false promise of respect, the high cost of a life lived in the shadows. And he told them about his father, not as a legend, but as a man. A flawed, broken, and ultimately tragic man who had been consumed by the game. His story was a powerful and cautionary tale, and the kids listened. He couldn't save them all. He knew that. But he could offer them a choice, a different path, the one he had been so close to missing himself. Years passed, Elias became a pillar in his community, a man who had taken the wreckage of his own past and built something beautiful and lasting. He got married, had children of his own, and he was the father his own father had never been. Present, honest, real. He thought about his father every day, not with anger anymore, but with a kind of quiet and profound sadness. He had solved the mystery of his disappearance, but he had never found his body. His father was still a ghost, a name on a missing persons report, a story with no final chapter. And then one day he got a call from a detective in the cold case squad. They had found him. A construction crew digging a new foundation down by the docks had unearthed human remains. Dental records confirmed it. It was Frankie. After 2 decades, the ghost had finally come home. They had a funeral, a small, quiet affair. Just Elias, his mother, his wife, his children, and a few of the old heads from the neighborhood, and their faces a roadmap of a life that was almost gone. As they lowered his father's coffin into the ground, Elias felt a sense of peace he had never known. The mystery was over. The ghost was at rest. He stood at his father's grave, the silver compass that Frankie had given him all those years ago, clutched in his hand. He had spent his whole life trying to find his way, to navigate the treacherous waters of his father's legacy, and he had finally truly found his own true north. It wasn't in the streets. It wasn't in revenge. It was in his own heart, in the family he had built, in the work he was doing, in the quiet and simple act of being a good man. He had been the son of a disappearing dad, but he had become the father who stayed. And in doing so, he had not just saved himself, he had saved the generations to come. He had finally and completely broken the chain. And so we come to the end of the story of the disappearing dad. A story that reminds us that the consequences of a life in the streets are not just measured in prison sentences. They are measured in the empty chairs at the dinner table, in the unanswered questions of the children who are left behind. Frankie was a ghost in his son's life. A legend, a mystery, a wound that would not heal. And Elias spent his youth haunted by that ghost, chasing a truth that was as dangerous as it was necessary. His quest for revenge could have easily consumed him, turned him into a reflection of the very men he was hunting. But he made a different choice. He chose to build, not to break. He chose to be a father, not a ghost. And his story is a testament to the power of a son's love. A love that was strong enough to walk into the heart of the darkness, to demand the truth, and to find a way to turn a legacy of pain into a legacy of hope. It's a reminder that the cycle of violence, of abandonment, it is not unbreakable. It takes courage. It takes honesty. It takes a willingness to face the ghosts of the past. But it can be done. One choice, one act of love, one man at a time. And in the end, that's the only justice that truly matters. The justice we create for ourselves and for the generations that will follow. The justice of a life well lived, a life of purpose, a life of peace. The final chapter of this story is a quiet one, written not in headlines, but in the small, ordinary moments of a life reclaimed. Elias continued his work at the community center, a quiet, steady presence in the lives of boys who were walking the same tightrope he had. He didn't just teach them how to stay out of trouble. He taught them how to be men, how to be fathers, how to be present. He took his own son to his grandfather's grave once a year. He didn't lie about who his father was. He told him the whole complicated and tragic story. The story of a good man who had made bad choices. The story of a ghost who had, in the end, found his way home. And in telling that story, Elias did the one thing his own father had never been able to do. He broke the cycle of silence, and he gave his son the truth. And in that truth, he gave him the one thing every child deserves, a chance to write his own story. A story free from the ghosts of the past. And this story, it's a reminder that the sins of the father do not have to be the sins of the son. That a legacy is not a destiny, it is a choice. We can choose to be defined by the pain we have been given. Or we can choose to be defined by the love we give back. Elias chose love, and in doing so, he not only saved himself, he saved the ghost of his disappearing dad too. He gave him a final and beautiful resting place, not in a cold, unmarked grave, but in the heart of a son who had, against all odds, found his way home. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.